Whoa.
Welcome back, everybody, to episode 44 of the Jader and Kyle show. I hope you were kidding with me, Jader. We're going back to back this week, guys. We just had an episode yesterday, and we are back in it today. Jader, welcome back to the show, man. It's good to be back 2 days in a row.
We are back 2 days in a row. I think this is the first time we've done this. We've done short weeks, but we've never done back-to-back episodes.
Never once.
Thrilled to see your face, your mug again, dude.
Are you really?
How was your Thursday? What did you do today?
I got COVID tested again, and that was
that's
fun.
exciting.
Yeah,
how was that?
It's same old, getting used to it at this point. So it's been interesting, but fun 24 hours. Got more stuff coming down later in the week, so it's gonna be fun. Otherwise, this episode that we're doing today has been, I feel like, a long time coming, even though it's
seriously
about 2 weeks, right?
Agreed. It's something that scheduling and COVID or whatnot, everything sort of got in the way of this episode. But I'm finally glad we are shooting it, man. Well, we'll talk about the film in a little bit, but this is somebody that I highly respect in the Movie Trivia Schmoedown. He came out of nowhere, like guns blazing, took over it. So without further ado, man, we have Adam Collins on the show. Welcome, Adam.
Yeah. Welcome to the show, Mr. Adam Collins.
Jader, Kyle, good evening to you both. And
good evening, sir.
Cheers. I think cheers. I can drink on this network, yes?
Absolutely, yes, we can.
Now that's a hell of a glass, Jader. That's a hell of a glass.
This is a prototype where I shot the idea to Christian, so we're talking about it. But
okay. Okay, I'll buy a whole set.
There's one on me. Don't worry about it. I'll ship it to you. Just send me your address. I got you, buddy.
I didn't even get one. What are we doing here? That's not fair.
This is an exclusive club, dude.
Okay. All right. We're starting this. Adam, man, welcome to the show. It is. I'm excited for this episode because we'll get to the movie itself later on, but let's start with you, Adam. Man, what a year it has been for you. Like, your life has completely changed within this past year, right?
Yes, in many ways. But yeah, the Schmoedown alone has been transformative, to say the least.
Man. So talk to us about that journey. I know that you were because I've heard about you before you actually joined the Schmoedown, because your name was already going around, that you during the free agency. So you played league you played in the fan leagues, correct?
Oh yeah. I like you, Jader, I've been a fan for a long time, and I've been to a number of live events. Couldn't make it to Orlando, but was really.
Could you imagine?
That was a hell of an
event. But I was so happy for you when I heard your story, and I followed your career very closely. And
thank you.
It's just been so exciting to see that play out. And I didn't have that opportunity, and I didn't have aspirations necessarily about getting directly into the Schmoedown, but I had spent so much time obsessively watching this game, and I knew a good amount of things, and I was like, I got to get this out of my system. So I at the second New York live event, I started mingling and talking to people who were involved in the fan leagues, and that was the best thing I did, because everyone was super friendly, and they pointed me in the right directions on how to get involved. And I got involved with 2 or 3 different leagues that fall of 2019, and that's where it all started. And I played in those leagues to really just scratch this itch that I'd become obsessed with. And the fan leagues are very, very unpredictable and occasionally ruthless in terms of questions.
They are. Sorry to interrupt, but they are totally ruthless. A lot of people think that I came from the fan leagues, like when my name first started coming around, and they were like, "Who is this guy?" And they're like, "Yeah, he comes from the fan leagues," and I'm like, "No, I didn't." And I started that night in Orlando, I met a bunch of people. They told me about Jack of all trades, and they just started like, requesting me. So I started watching the Fan League, and there's some ruthless questions. Like, I think like 10-pointer questions on that shit. Where I'm like, Jesus Christ, dude.
And
so
it's there's so much diversity in the way the questions are asked, because these other leagues have to differentiate themselves from the Schmoedown. And so they have different round 3s, different round 2s sometimes, different rules overall, different kinds of categories, and then people can create their strengths out of thin air, pretty much match to match. So if you are obsessed with just Crispin Glover movies, he's never going to get a slice in the Schmoedown. Well, maybe never. Say never.
Yeah, never say never.
Never say never.
Yeah,
say
yeah.
never.
I mean, I feel like PJ and I could vibe about some Crispin Glover, but just to use him as an example, I could get a slice for him in the Fan Leagues, no problem. In fact, I was planning on it. But
those time machine questions.
Yeah, but the point is, like, you can walk into a match in those leagues and you play, you get a round 2 category that's insanely specific or about a really esoteric, like, director or actor or something. And it just, but that's what I liked about it. It was so unpredictable, and it put everyone on a level playing field in a certain way. So I just really immersed myself in that community, and there's so many people who have been doing it longer than I have and continue to do it. And the people who were drafted this year, in fact, I think a lot of them played in the leagues longer than I did.
Yeah,
I barely got my feet wet, but then Christian found out who I was, thank God, and reached out to me.
Exactly, dude. That's awesome.
Well, I was excited.
So how was that? How did that conversation go? Because obviously you weren't in the draft in January when Marisol, myself, and the draft, obviously that happened in January, but you were there for the free agency. So how did that come about?
Yeah, Christian reached out to me and asked if I would be interested in being a free agent, and I said yes, of course, but I was in a bit of shock. Because I had no idea he knew who I was. Even though I'd been to live events, I'd met him, but everyone met him.
No, I've seen you. I've seen lately. People are pausing you in the live events. They're like, "Oh, look who was at this event!" And you like front and center. It's so great.
Yeah,
I think there was one shot where it was like 3 or 4 of you guys. I don't remember who it was. I obviously remembered it was you. But I've seen like they've been posting pictures like that. I'm like, that's pretty great, man.
Well, yeah, there was I like seeing that too. Although I think Snyder made I got to give him credit, a pretty funny joke about he said, like, I'm picking up on single white female vibes in this photo or something, because like it was me in the audience for him playing Oyama or something.
There it is.
Credit where credit's due. But when Christian reached out to me, he just said, like you to be a free agent. No guarantee you'll be drafted, but we'll see what happens. And then I had taken the initiative to let Shannon know I was playing in the fan leagues prior to that, because she had announced a vacancy in her faction. And I didn't think that would necessarily get me a spot. I just figured I had nothing to lose by politely letting her know that I was playing matches and that I was building up a winning record. At that point, I was 3-0. Well, I was in there's several different leagues, as you know, but there's the league I played in the most. I went 3-0 in singles and 3-0 in teams. And at that point, I reached out to her. I was like, okay, I have a little resume here. I can be like, hey, here's the video. So she reached out to me and gave me the first pitch, and we had a great conversation, and I had made up my mind. And then Winston reached out, and we had a good conversation too, but I told him out of respect that I was going with Shannon, but I didn't want to ignore him. And the rest is history.
And history was definitely fucking made, my friend. Holy shit, what a year you had, man.
Right.
You know, and again, it was something that, your name was buzzing around. I had seen some of your matches, and I'm like, this guy is the real deal. I'm like, this guy is gonna go far. And your very first year, man, I feel like obviously, I feel like I had a strong rookie year. I obviously, had my losses here and there, but I feel like our rookie class, with Barbarian and Parker and Collins and Marisol and myself, like
Goddard.
Ben Goddard, exactly. We had a pretty strong rookie class. So, are you looking forward to see what the because this year was, it's funny because this year was called War. Last year was called the New Era, but I feel obviously we're keeping the war theme and everything. We're going at each other's throats, but I feel like this is definitely the new era, if that makes any sense, because it's so many fresh faces in this. So go ahead.
I take a lot of pride in our rookie class because we were a larger wave of rookies than previous seasons, but not like in different ways. We all had our own narrative. You, James, Marisol, myself, Barbarian, Goddard, Parker. We all had a different story. And I think what's special about it is we all came more or less from obscurity. And there's something exciting about that. That's why Rocky won Best Picture. And I just think I knew that with me, I didn't think anything was a guarantee. I just knew I knew answers most of the time. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to put that to the test. And character work has been secondary for me. And I have so many things in the works for this season. It's going to be a lot of fun. And I'm working
up there. Love it.
Thank you kindly, Marisol. But I feel like what's cool is we were trendsetters, me, you, Marisol, and the others, and the reason I feel confident in saying that is look at the draft this year and look what happened. And, you have people making fun of the Finstock exchange, but I respect what they did.
I've said that on a bunch of shows, my friend. I've said that on a bunch of shows that to look out for them. And you know what? They, you saw the I don't know if you saw the match today, with the Rager and V. Look at that, and it was they're getting their W's in, man. So major respect. Craig is a dear friend of mine and a dear friend of the show. He's been on here multiple times already, and I reached out to him today, and I was like, hey, you guys are fucking killing it, dude. I'm like, congrats, you guys were getting so much shit during that draft. I'm like, congratulations. I know you guys are holding your head up really high right now. I'm very pumping your chest right now. Like, be proud, enjoy this moment.
Absolutely. I think it's good that, a lot of factions shook it up, like over in Corruption, we maintained a lot of the same roster. Yeah. But that wasn't a mistake, and the people we brought in were people who've all played the game to varying degrees. And even Jacob London, who's a rookie, has played in the fan leagues and is a student of the game. And we have our strategy and everyone else has theirs, and we'll see who ends up on top at the end of the season. But I do respect those who have put faith in unproven talent, because I think our class demonstrated that we there's some potential out there.
Yep.
I want to ask you, Adam, kind of about how your life has really changed within this past year, because you didn't just have a debut, but you really set the world on fire. Like I don't think anyone could have had a better debut than you had for a rookie season. And I know it kind of sucks that you have to do it all from home. Like you couldn't go on stage or in a live event, anything like that, because you obviously would have been a part of that. But just being home and experiencing this love, how's that felt for you?
Well, it's been a lot to process. The Schmoedown is, even before I became a competitor, it's a passion of mine that's basically involuntary. I can't help but follow it and keep my thumb on the pulse. Now that I'm in it the way I am, I'm in the game. You can only imagine my dedication to it. I do wish, as I'm sure Jader does, I wish that the Schmoedown could be like a full-time job with benefits and all that, because that would be the dream. That would be the dream. because I have my day job, which I really like and I really appreciate. But I mean, to be honest, the passion I feel for the Schmoedown is just at a different level, because my love for film, like a lot of us, it goes way back. And, you know, I studied it, which, you know, in college, which, you know, nurtured that. But it's my relationship with it since then, and the way that Schmoedown itself reinvigorated my connection with cinema and got me back to my roots. Mm-hmm. Because at the time, I, like a lot of people, was swept up in this renaissance of television, and it's a bottomless pit. There's too much good television.
Yeah, I've realized that late as of
really
late,
hard
sir.
to keep up with.
It's so hard to keep up with TV, man. And I've forgotten about films too. I'm absolutely. It was a time where I just stopped watching movies, and I was all about watching whatever show was on. I was watching, you know, Breaking Bad, Power, Sons of Anarchy. I was just lost. Dexter, whatever was on at the time. And I was catching up with old shows.
Nuts.
I had never seen The Wire. I had never seen Sopranos, so I started watching it. And then people were asking me, like, hey, what'd you think of it? Because I was always known with my friends. They're like, hey, you're the movie guy. Hey, what'd you think of it? I'm like, oh, dude, I haven't gone to the movies in forever. And then I'm like, Jesus Christ. But then now I'm the opposite. Now I'm just film. Like I made time for Ted Lasso because of this guy. He told me to watch Ted Lasso, and I'm like, you know what?
I will get around to that as well.
That you fantastic. Can, Adam, you can knock that.
I knocked it out. I knocked it out in like a day and a half. Not even. Honestly, it was a full day. But get around to it. It's a fantastic show. It's so great. But so yeah.
But we have to. But we have to be selective with TV by necessity when we play in the Schmoedown, though. Yeah. Like I do watch certain shows, but I have to be strategic, and I usually set a day aside to like binge them. So like WandaVision, I let the first 6 episodes build up, and then I binged it, and then the final 3 episodes I watched week to week, so it was no big deal. And like that works for me because I have such a crazy schedule, and movie watching on a regular basis is very important to me. I want to make sure I'm digesting cinema on a daily basis, even if I can't finish a film on a daily basis. And so when I watch television, I just have to be highly selective.
So I also want to touch on this with you. You said you went to film school. I also went to film school, and what was that experience like while you were there? Like, what did you pick up on? Because I already went into it with like a knowledge of more classic film and stuff like that, and I really went in to learn how to make them better. But like, what was your experience like when you went to film school?
Well, I mean, frankly, I'd love to go back someday and go for my master's. Because when I went into it, it was right after high school, and you know we're so green back then. You know, we're so naive, and
yes,
and the way I would approach film school now would be fundamentally different. But it was like drinking from a fire hose. It was great. Like I learned so much so fast, and right. I fell in love with it head over heels more than I already had. And, just started, that's when I started connecting with specific filmmakers and stuff like that. And I love the theory courses as well as the production courses. Mm-hmm. And I got a Bachelor of Science in production. But that was with a pretty strong foundation in theory as well. And it just got me really engaged with film history in a really comprehensive way. And that's something that I lost momentarily in my mid-20s until I found the Schmoedown in my later 20s. And now I'm in my mid-30s, if that tells you anything. And it's just the Schmoedown really renewed. I can't overstate how it renewed my love for film, and it's paid dividends even before I ever became a competitor.
It's tough because it's easy to lose that passion for loving film because, eventually you can hit a really bad string of movies over and over again, and it can get tough. But at the same time too, as soon as you catch that one that just grabs you, you suddenly rediscover that love, and it's there every single time you watch it. That's what I love about film is when people always ask me, like, why are you so obsessed with movies? It's because it's a different story every time. There's always going to be something different. It's a new experience every time I watch it. So that's why I really enjoy getting to watch films, seeing new ones all the time, also rediscovering some of the classics. And so, Adam, I think my big question to you would be, since you're the champion, like you obviously have to know so much at this point in the Schmoedown to even get up into that level. Where did that knowledge come from? Are you like consistently watching movies every single day, or like, I'm not asking for your study techniques, but where did that wealth of knowledge come from?
Well, it comes from the way I've related to film from a very young age, which is a hard thing to articulate, but it's also having just a knack for retaining information that I'm very passionate about or that I interact with on a regular basis. So I've always had an aptitude in my work. I've done so many things for a living throughout my life. And I've always developed an aptitude for whatever I'm doing because of the repetition. And it just gets to this point where I have these idiosyncratic ways of relating to my job that I start then teaching to my staff in unique ways. And it just helps for me to develop a team over time, at least in my management experience, that functions as a well-oiled machine. When it comes to me as an individual, film is what I've loved the most in terms of art from when I was a very young person, and given my relationship with it over the years, it's just the way I connect all of these different webs of information, whether it be directors, composers, the years films are released, genres, things obviously that relate to my own personal experience of when I saw movies as they were released, but also the way I've gone back into history and I've interacted with so much film decade to decade, and the way I love film as a window into history, especially. So that's my favorite questions that I answer in the Schmoedown are, films that are older, to be honest with you. Like, those are the questions I love getting right the most, because I enjoy watching films pre-2000s, because everything that's come out since the 2000s, a lot of great stuff, don't get me wrong, but we continue to dissect it on a regular basis because of by virtue of our age group. And so for older things to be discussed or to be brought up in the Schmoedown, that's stuff I really enjoy, just because it adds a little variety.
And it doesn't happen often on the Schmoedown too. Like, the older film questions really don't come up as much as anything from the 90s till today. Like, that's where the bulk of Schmoedown questions come from. And then when you hit those 70s, the classics, even sometimes modern classics, it's really impressive when you see the people who actually know that stuff. That's where you can see the real wealth of knowledge for a lot of people. And I feel like, Jader, you probably feel the same way, right?
Absolutely, 100%. Same thing, Adam. I'm in my mid-30s as well. So I was actually gonna throw some questions at you. Do you remember the first film you saw in theater? Or the first film that you saw? You want to tell me the first film that you saw this. You're like, oh, okay, I love this. Like, this is what I like. Just a film that first grabbed you, or the first film you saw in theater, whatever.
If we're talking about literally the first film I saw as a child, it was Beauty and the Beast, but I don't know that I realized that film was going to be a big part of my life at that point for the rest of my life. I love Beauty. I actually, to this day, Beauty and the Beast is probably my favorite Disney animated film. I think it's terrific.
It's a hell of a film, dude. I don't blame you.
I really think it's great. But I saw Jurassic Park in theaters. So that was great.
That was special.
But honestly, if pressed, when I think about like a film that had an impact on me in the theater, the first time that I was just flabbergasted, as I was coming of age, really, was when Fellowship of the Ring came out, and I saw it 6 times, and I just
holy shit, in the theater.
Yeah.
Wow, dude.
It was a transformative experience. I had just read all the books, and that movie it more than exceeded my expectations. I didn't know what to do with myself after I saw it the first time. So I just kept going back to the theater to get that high again.
I've seen there's 2 movies that I've seen 6 times in the theater, so I don't blame it. It was Spider-Man 2, saw it 6 times in the theater, and I saw The Dark Knight 6 times in the theater as well. You know, those are 2 films for me that just blew me away. Obviously, both sequels, both coming. We had a predecessor already, and then it just did. I felt like they just took it up that notch.
I saw Midsommar 4 times in theaters.
No!
Well, you know what? Let me let you in on a little secret. I have not seen that film.
It's Mike Kalinowski's favorite film of 2019.
I heard he
not
hates
really
that movie. I'm like, I heard he
hasn't even seen it. He hates Hereditary.
Okay, yeah, no, for me, so that's the thing. I loved Hereditary.
Me too.
I've seen it so many times. I'm a big horror buff. I just don't know why I never got around to seeing Midsommar. It's not that I don't want to. And a bunch of my cousin is huge on it. He's like, dude, he goes, it's just a very, very effed up movie. And he goes, you'll really dig it. And he goes, but I don't know. He's like, I always feel like I gotta be in a mood to see that. And my girlfriend's not really into horror. So in fact, I was talking to Kyle 2 nights ago. I ended up watching Annabelle Comes Home because I hadn't finished that. It was the last of the Conjuring universe films.
It's a fun movie.
It's very fun. So I liked it. It wasn't bad. I like Creation more. I'm not gonna lie. The Sandberg film for me.
I do too.
Was the better film. But I didn't hate Creation not Creation. Comes Home as much as a lot of people said that it wasn't as. It wasn't as good as a sequel, but they were like kind of like, tossing it aside completely. Anywho, we saw the movie. I really liked it. I started watching it maybe like around 9:30 at night. Just enough to go to sleep. Movie ended. I went to sleep. She could not go to sleep. She woke me up like 3 times that night, where she heard like a little tap, and she was like, and she's like tapping me. I'm like, dude, stop waking me up, man. I'm tired. I gotta go to work in the morning. So when it comes to horror, things like that, and even Hereditary, it's a movie that she does not want to watch again. We saw it in the theater, and she looked, and I shit you not. The movie the movie came out when we were first started dating, and I told her, I'm like, man, I heard this movie is crazy, because Kyle saw it before I did. He saw it. He got to see it at a screening, and I was like, Kyle's like, it's right up your alley, dude. He's like, it's a fucked up horror movie. He's like, you're gonna like it. And I was like, all right, cool, awesome. And there was major hype around it. A lot of hype behind Ari Aster and Hereditary itself. So she told me, she goes, I'll go watch it in the theater. She goes, but she goes, we have to watch it like at 2 p.m. so I can just go to sleep. I mean, like, we can go about our day and I'm not thinking about it. I'm like, sure.
She can go out into daylight. That always helps. Yeah.
So I ended up getting the 10 p.m. showing, and I was like, hey,
Jader.
And I'm like, hey, you're coming. So
how packed was the theater at that point?
It wasn't that packed. I think we went like on a Monday or Tuesday. I didn't see it opening weekend. So I saw like on a Monday or Tuesday. It still had people in there. And I went to the only theater that had it late for some reason was the theater that I hate going to, because it gets packed with like teenagers and they, horror and, so, but overall, I think the movie was so effed up that they were just quiet. They couldn't say anything. Like, I guess they were like, they were like in shock, but the movie, I loved it. So it ends, and I get up, and I'm like, man, that was good. And I look at her, and she looks at me, straight face, not joking, because she's known to be like, she jokes around a lot. She has like, she's kind of like Mark Ellis, promise you. She's always saying jokes and all that stuff. And she looked at me, dead serious face, and she goes, you need to take me to church. I felt like this is a satanic. She goes, this is like a satanic cult film, and I don't know why you're smiling. This is not funny. And I was like, oh my God, what did I do?
Wait till you see Midsommar.
Oh man. So then I mean, we ended up, like, I promise you, I got home, and then she's like, I'm sleeping over. I'm like, all right, that's fine. I'm going home, and I go to sleep. I can watch the most effed up movie ever, and as soon as my head hits that pillow, I'm gone. She said she couldn't, right? All of a sudden, I hear her cracking up in the middle of the night. I'm waking up. I turn over and she's watching the 40-year-old virgin, 3 a.m. And I'm looking at her and I'm like, what are you doing? She goes, you thought I was messing around? She goes, I'm not going to sleep until the sun comes out now. I'm watching comedies. She goes, you're lucky I'm off tomorrow. I'm like, so that's a little bit of a fun show there.
I feel for her because very briefly, I saw The Exorcist way too young at 10 years old, wasn't ready for it.
Yep.
Hadn't really quite figured out my relationship with religion at that age, so I took everything very literally. And I saw that movie and I didn't sleep for 2 nights, and I just remember I'll never forget. Like,
did you see the director's cut first?
No, I saw the original. I saw it on VHS. This is back in the 90s, like 96, 97. And I just remember, I remember being awake at night in my room with the radio on, and Sex and Candy by Marcy Playground kept playing. And so for like, it is, but as a child for like a year, that song freaked me out because I associated with The Exorcist. Kind of weird.
Shit,
There's some inside stories for you.
That's awesome, dude. But yeah, no, I feel like I saw The Exorcist way too young as well. Again, always been a masochist. When I saw the original horror movie that got me into horror was Scream. I saw Scream in the theater. I snuck in to go see that movie because originally I went to go see this movie. I don't know if you remember, with Dougie Doug and Christina Ricci, called That Darn Cat.
Oh, I remember That Darn Cat.
So I went to go see That Darn Cat. And I hated like the first 15, 20 minutes of that film. And I was like, I'm not watching this. Got up, and my older cousin went to go see Scream. And I told her, I'm like, what movie are you watching? She goes, oh, it's a horror movie. You can't see it. It's very scary. And obviously, tell a kid, at 10 years old, don't do it. First thing I did. So I snuck in, like I was looking, and then, they remember the theaters that have so many doors. I'm looking to see if they're looking. They didn't. And I left That Darn Cat and beeline to Scream, set all the way in the back row. Theater was completely packed. And I got there just in time. I didn't see maybe the first 2 minutes or 3 minutes of the film. She was already crying and screaming on the phone, and they, killed her boyfriend. I was like, oh my, and then you see her, Drew Barrymore, hanging from the tree. And I was like, what the hell? And I was so shook that I couldn't move, right? That I was so scared that I couldn't move, but I was just so intrigued by the story, by the characters. I'm like, man, these characters are awesome. And then they're getting killed. Opened up Pandora's box for me, literally. And ever since then, so then I told my uncle, I'm like, dude, I saw this movie called Scream. I didn't sleep for like a day when I saw Scream. That night, cold sweats. I ended up crying, telling my mom that I snuck into a theater watching a movie I shouldn't have watched, and it's about a guy that kills because of movies. Am I becoming a serial killer because I like movies? No. Like, I ended up messing with imagine I was 10 years old when that movie came out, and
it's a 90s mother's worst nightmare.
Dude, it was bad. So I ended up telling my uncle that was into horror and all that stuff. I'm like, you got to watch this movie called Scream. It was great. And he goes, yeah, your mom told me, cried about it. And he's like, if you really want to watch a horror movie, watch The Exorcist. Never forget that. Went to Blockbuster that weekend with a bunch of friends. Saw The Exorcist for the first time. I was 10 years old when I saw it. And scarred me for life, but is now my favorite horror film. Like I adore that film.
Yeah,
I adore that film.
And this is not the Exorcist episode, I know, but just the reason I love it is because I'm a pretty secular guy at this point in my life, but I still relate to the film. It doesn't matter that it's about religion at face value. It's about so much more. And as a parent and as a father, that movie really messes with me now too.
Oh, absolutely. No, and Steph hadn't seen it either. There's a bunch of films. Like, I'm always catching her up with like my favorite films. And she's like, I heard this movie's too scary. I don't want to watch it. She didn't. It's crazy because she found Hereditary to be so much more scary than The Exorcist. She ended up liking The Exorcist. She said it was overhyped completely, but she said that she didn't think it was like the whole science behind it. And then it jumped into the religion part. She's like, they really wrote this film really smartly. She thought she's like, it's very smartly written,
Mm-hmm.
very well acted. She goes, it's all that. She goes, I just don't think it's the scariest film of all time. I'm like, yeah, you didn't see it at 10 years old. It's not the same.
Context.
Exactly, sir.
It's funny that I can't believe that you saw Midsommar 4 times in theaters. I went to see that movie with my grandmother and my sister. My grandmother left at the cliff scene, and I left being very nauseous at the end of the film. Like I felt sick to my stomach walking out of that movie. I'm
watching this movie this weekend, and we will talk about it. Both of you.
No.
Yeah,
I've never felt that way about a movie in my entire life, just being sick walking out of the theater. And I don't know how that feeling came up. I think it was just a combination of everything that happens within it. Jader, you would absolutely love it. You're going to dive right into it and never want it to end. But we've been talking for quite a while, guys. Let's jump into our movie. So, Adam, when we asked you to come on the show, you gave Jader a list of films, and this was my favorite discussion to have with Jader because Jader's like, "Oh man, you should see the list that Adam gave me." And
so let's give Adam a little background.
And this was, trust me, this was tame coming from me.
Yeah. So check it out. Obviously, you were watching the show when Marisol was on, and that's when I'm like, I got to get Adam on the show. Reached out to you the whole nine. You send me your list right away. So This is the thing. Kyle here, I know you were talking about, pre-2000 films. Kyle here is a huge fan of the 90s.
Get the fuck out of here.
No, he's not. He's like, every 90s films that we reviewed, he's like, I just don't get why you guys love this movie. Yada, yada, yada. So it's been with him lately where he's been like, why are they picking these films? Why can't we talk about something better? There's so many great films we talk about, and we're talking about, and just for as an example, I'm going to use Big Trouble in Little China. He wasn't a fan of the film, right? So he's like, why are we talking about this? Why are we talking about Dogma? Dogma lost to Almost Famous, which we ended up doing last night. So we got Almost Famous for Kyle. So I'm like, so this is Colin's list, and hold on, let me send it to you. Send it.
I remember most of them. It was Creep Show. It was Dead
Creep
Man.
Show, Blue Velvet, Dead Man,
Bad Lieutenant,
and About Schmidt.
But it was the Nick Cage Bad Lieutenant.
Nick Cage, yeah, Nick Cage.
The Herzog, not the Ferrara.
Yeah. But so Kyle saw that list and said, what the shit is this? And whatever, we posted it. We posted on the site, and the fans voted About Schmidt. He's like, I've never even heard of this film. What the hell is this? And then what did I tell you, Kyle? What did I tell you?
Yeah, it's actually a pretty good movie.
I'm like, watch it. Watch it. I know your taste, and I feel like you will enjoy this film. I'm like, out of all the ones, this is kind of the one that I wanted to win because I know this is like right up Kyle's alley.
I love Alexander Payne. I think he makes very, very. He makes great movies, and like The Descendants is something.
With the exception of Downsizing. Let's be clear.
It's ambitious. But I think like The Descendants is a movie that's almost like comfort food in a way to me. I just like going back to watch it.
Great.
It's really great. So I'm surprised I had never dived into this film before About Schmidt. And after you chose it, Adam, I was very impressed with like how much I enjoyed this thing because I didn't expect it at all. But Adam, I want to hear, why did you choose to put About Schmidt on your list? Is it one of your favorites, or is it just something you wanted to have fun talking about?
Mm-hmm. About Schmidt is comfortably in my top 20 films of all time. Maybe not my top 10, but it's up there. I saw it when it released in theaters, not knowing much about it. At the time, I was in high school. And by the end of it, I was blown away that as like a sophomore or junior in high school or whatever I was like blown away by how much I related to this man who was retiring and going through this crisis of identity and meaning and all these things. He's lost so much all at once, and it was like this moment where everything like clicked, and like I understand my grandparents. I understood them as human beings because I saw this. I understood them better anyway because I saw this film, and then it stuck with me, and I've gone back to it countless times over the years, and it gets better every single time I watch it, including in preparation for this episode. I rewatched it, and just in the past year, the things I've experienced have colored the way I experience this movie now when I watch it. So it evolves with me. That's why I put it on the list.
I think it's one of those movies where it's about appreciating what you have while you have it, and taking in the little things as they come along. And I think this movie is so clever the way it's told. That like how you see this, you think it's gonna be about this miserable old man, and then once everything starts falling apart for him, he starts trying to take in those little moments little by little as he moves along, trying to reconnect with his daughter and show that he actually does have appreciation. He's trying to hold on to something that before it's gone, because he sees he's at the end of his life. He sees mortality as something that's so precious after losing his wife. So I really appreciated about the film. But Jader, what did you like so much about Schmidt?
Same thing. Actually, it's funny that Adam mentioned seeing it in a theater. This would be back then, at least. In 2002, it's not a movie that I would go voluntarily to go see in the theater. Back then, my movie taste was completely different than what it is now. I was really, really, really close with with one of my English teachers, and him and I would talk film all the time. So we would ask each other every Monday, hey, did you catch any films? What did you see this weekend? This and that weekend. I guess because about Schmidt, I don't know what went up against it. I can't remember, but I did not go to the movie theater that weekend. So I asked him, I'm like, "Oh, what did you go see? Did you see anything?" And he goes, "I went to go see About Schmidt with Jack Nicholson." And I'm like, "Oh, how was it?" He's like, "Probably a little bit too boring for you, man." He goes, "I thought it was fantastic." He goes, "It's something that I would go watch." He goes, "I would recommend it to you." He goes, "But I feel like you might be a little bit too young, even though you are pretty mature." He goes, "Give it a shot. You might like it." And I was like, you know what? I'm going to give it a shot. So I went to go see it. And I was surprised by how much I really enjoyed this film at that age. And it's a movie, just like you say, that I definitely go back and revisit. Not as often as I should, because I probably haven't seen this movie in about 3 years until you obviously brought it up and we had to rewatch it. But it was a film that I owned it on DVD. So it was one of those that I would watch, and I would show some. I showed a couple of my family members and a couple of my friends. I'm like, watch this, man. I'm like, this is pretty good stuff. But same thing. I just really it was so much better now that I saw it now as an adult. We've all gone through our shit. We've all, had things. We've lost family members. We've lost friends. I don't know if you guys lost any friends or anything, but just like exactly what Kyle said, appreciate the things that you have while you have, and it just kind of like clicked this last time where I was like, holy shit, man, this movie is fantastic.
What I love about it, though, especially is, and this is the gift of Alexander Payne when he's at the top of his game, is he's able to balance cynicism and sentimentality really, really well. And this movie has an emotional impact for me, but it loses none of its edge throughout the entire runtime of 2 hours. It's a movie that is so quiet and so leisurely paced, and it's 2 hours long, but for me, it feels like a 90-minute film. It really clips and always goes very quickly for me. And I also love examining, because I'm a big Jack Nicholson fan, I love examining this in the context of his career. It's his final Oscar nomination. He lost to Adrian Brody, which I'm not going to complain about, but I would have been thrilled if he won for this movie.
Absolutely.
And I think he would have earned it. And I think it's so cool that he still had The Departed ahead of him and a few other things. But this movie, he's so subdued, which is not something we see a lot with him. And that's why I think the performance is even more impactful, because we know what Nicholson is capable of doing on screen. And he's very expressive in the film, but he's not screaming and kicking and throwing tantrums. There's like one or two scenes where he gets a little fired up, but it's
little Nicholson.
overall, Yeah. But overall, he's pretty chill at this point.
Yeah. He looks like he's constantly on the brink of just explode.
About to explode. Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely.
I love that about him. And Jack Nicholson plays it so well. Like, please, like, don't say, if you say one wrong thing, he's going to lose it. And I just think that face is perfect the entire time. Any last things you guys want to talk about this before we jump into the categories?
I can wax poetic about this film, which I'll do towards the end of the show.
All right, so this is going to give us a good chance to dive into so many deep things about this. So let's start with our first category here: best scene. Adam, you are a guest here, so I'm going to go to you first. What is the best scene in this film, or the one that you go back to the most?
It's debatable. It's very debatable. There's so many scenes I love in the film. I'm not going to say any of the Ndugu letters because those are all great scenes, but they're really effective monologues, and I kind of grade them on their own set of rules. I can't compare them to like other scenes, if that makes sense. But all the Ndugu stuff is perfection to me. I love it. Yeah. When it comes to character scenes, look, I know it's an obvious comedic scene, but I think because it is just this climactic moment of tension, and the comedy and the dramatic tension comes together at the same moment, is the hot tub.
Yes.
And
I was shitting on you, by the way, for picking this because I'm like, God damn it, man! I gotta see Kathy Bates naked again.
Hey, you know what? Like, I've always loved Kathy Bates, and this film is no exception.
She's so great, dude. She is so great in everything she's in. She always gives like 1,000%. I guarantee she'll come up on the later end of this episode. So.
She brings so much energy, but the thing I love about that scene is at that point in the film, Warren has spoken his mind, and his daughter said, "Make your peace with my marriage. Get over yourself," as she should. And he's kind of just in this state of he's just resigned himself. And after that day he's had with the back pain and the hysterectomy meds that he gets from Roberta, aka Kathy Bates. When he gets to that scene in the hot tub, it's funny because there's the shock value, but the shock value is one thing, and that only happens the first time you see the movie.
Yeah.
The reason I like that scene isn't when I go back to it is because I realize when I'm not in a theater full of people like I was when I first saw that, everyone was like, "Oh," because Kathy Bates was getting naked, and they were shocked because the movie was so like relaxed, and out of nowhere there's this nude scene, and Warren is taken aback and all this. But the reason I love it is because Roberta is the most honest character in the film. Yeah. And she calls Warren on all of his shit without being an asshole about it. She's just a good person. And she's not perfect. She's got anger issues herself, but she loves her family unconditionally. And she loves Warren's daughter for the individual that she is. And she's this free-spirited person, which is the complete opposite of Warren. And for her to come on to him on top of everything else was just this perfect moment of comedy for me, because he's reached this point where he's at his wit's end, and we know that. But the thing that puts the power in her hands for me is she says, "Jeannie told us about your little freak out today, and I just want to let you know it's no big deal." And that's just her again saying, "Warren, relax. You don't need to like control everything. Like, just life is a beautiful thing." And she's, I feel like she's the spiritual pulse of that film in a lot of ways. And when I first saw the movie, I just thought she was like this comedic element, and I saw her as a very superficial character. And when I revisit it, I gain a lot more appreciation for that performance. So that's why I like the hot tub scene so much.
Jader, what's your pick?
I'm cheating completely because he said that he was gonna do the letters completely, like separate them from everything because they're all great. But for me, it's my favorite scene is actually the very last letter that he reads.
And if I were being honest, that would probably be mine too. Because I cry every time, and I'm not.
No, and it's so fantastic. It actually choked me up this last time again, man. It's been, it's been a hell of a couple last year, couple years, sorry, and just you everyone, especially us, as life goes on, you're gonna go through some shit, and him feeling him, Nicholson saying that he is never going to amount to anything and that no one's going to remember him, this and that and that. This little boy, he changed his life over something that he saw in an infomercial on TV, and just saying that he wishes you the best and that you're making him smile. It's just such an impacting scene. And it's crazy because it's a letter, obviously being read, right? His him acting, his all his emotions that he shows in this film, and just like you said, we're used to seeing, obviously seeing him in Once Flew Overs, or seeing The Departed, or seeing him as the Joker, or seeing just how he is, Chinatown, Shining, exactly, all those stuff. Seeing him in this state of like vulnerability and just feeling like he's like, oh my God, like I literally was writing a letter saying how he doesn't amount to anything or no one's going to remember him. But here's this letter saying the complete opposite of what I'm feeling right now. I just think it's such a powerful scene, beautiful scene. And it every time, even from the first time I saw that movie to the very last time I saw that film, it's just a scene that hits me every time that I watch it. I'm like, this is hands down the best scene in the film. So
I would agree with that, and if I could qualify my answer briefly, if that's okay.
Yeah, man, this is your show, bro.
I just want to say the hot tub scene, I think, is this amazing collision of the dramatic and the comedic in that film. But if I'm talking about emotional heft, I would have to say, and I know I'm double dipping here. His speech at the wedding is great, not just because of his performance, but because of the way it's shot. And the part that gets me so much in that scene is when he starts saying nice things about Randall for the first time. And in the background, out of focus, you see Hope Davis breaking down and crying.
Breaking down, yeah.
Because her father's finally making the effort that she's wanted to make the whole film, and it's out of focus, and that's what I think is so powerful about it. We're not doing a hard cut close up on Hope Davis breaking down, and that's a little moment that really gets me.
That's some power from by the director, buddy.
I actually went with the first letter. That's my favorite scene in this movie because the first time you watch it, you're wondering to yourself, like, what's this movie about? What are we doing? Jack Nicholson hasn't really spoken up until this first letter. You don't really know what he's saying, what he's feeling, what's on his mind. He's going to his retirement party. He doesn't seem very happy where he is in life. And he starts writing this letter to this child and then just goes off about his life. Everything completely shifts from that moment on. He hates his wife. He hates his life. He starts talking about how he hates how she pulls out the keys when they're walking to the car and how he has to sit down to pee because wiping the seat with his foot wasn't good enough, stuff like that. Like, it was so funny because the movie really takes a turn there, how he hates the guy who took his job that he was forced to retire from, all this stuff. I think it's a great comedic twist from where we were going at the beginning, and I love how it sets the tone for the rest of the film. So that was the one that stuck with me the most.
I don't know if you want to we have a favorite scene in the comments. I don't know if you want to put that up. I thought not a scene, but a favorite moment.
We got a couple here. Cam Shaft said she loves the scene where he's reading the letter that he wrote. She loves that too. And then Marisol said she loves Roberta's wall, the wall with Randall with all his participation medals and perfect attendance to follow. That's a great moment too.
That is a great moment.
Oh God, it's so good because the realization on Schmidt's face, because he's brushing his teeth and he's just like looking at these, and just like with every single one, like the realization, because he's so judgmental. But we're the audience. We're complicit. We are too.
Yeah, absolutely. No, absolutely, 1,000%. And one of the lines that I actually love is when his wife says, "My father wasn't too fond of you either," but here we are,
And his response. Oh my God, the way I wish that I want a prequel of Jack Nicholson and June Squibb scenes because all of their scenes together are so good. And like when she says, I thought we'd have breakfast when she makes breakfast
in the RV,
so
super cute, super sweet, man. Yeah,
and she says, I thought it'd be fun if we had breakfast in here today, and he just looks at her. He says, "Fine,
sure, fine."
That reminded me of him in The Shining when he's pissed off at Shelley Duvall.
Yes.
But and then when she says, "My father wasn't so fond of you in the beginning," he's like, "Yeah."
That's great. Let's move on to best line. Jader, I'm going to start with you on this one. What is your pick for the best line in this film?
Again, man, it's just the emotional about this film for me. I know it's funny, drama, and all that stuff, but when he writes, again, relatively soon I will die. Maybe in 20 years, maybe tomorrow. It doesn't matter. Once I'm dead and everyone around me dies too, it will be as though I never existed. What difference has my life made to anyone? None that I can think of, none at all. So it goes back to my favorite scene, obviously. I explained why it's my favorite scene because he just feels like he did nothing. This is his life. He invested in this company and all that stuff, and just everything goes, felt like everything goes to waste. So he says that, and then immediately after he reads a letter on how he made a difference in someone's life. It's fucking poetic, and I love it. So that's my answer.
Mine kind of ties into it too. My line is another one from Schmidt, and it's when he's speaking to his wife, and after she's passed, and he's like, "I know we're all pretty small in the big scheme of things, and I suppose that most you can hope for is to make some kind of difference. But what kind of difference have I made? What in the world is better because of me?" And I feel like we all kind of reflect on that at some point in our lives too. You wonder, if I were to die today, would anyone notice? Would I leave an impact? And it's something that we face younger, but also at an older age. I feel like a lot of elderly people probably go through this. What have I done in my life? What kind of impact have I had? And it goes back to the theme of this film, which is appreciating the things you have before they're gone and getting those small things. So I feel like that's his moment of realization, because right after this is when you start to get the letter from Nduku's sister, or the sister that takes care of Nduku, and how everything kind of comes together then. So that's my pick as well. Adam, what do you got?
Well, honestly, there's so many home run lines that sum up some of the more emotional aspects of the film, and you both have named two of the best. But in recognizing the comedic strength of this film as well. Look, I'm a little obsessed with Roberta Herzl. I got a little crush on her. I can't deny it. And one of my favorite things about it is how much she hates her ex-husband, Larry. And Larry, and I'll get to this later because I may or may not have a best cameo performance. But the thing I love about her is how short her fuse is with him giving the speeches, and how he tries to give a speech when they're just at that little crappy dinner table with the lazy Susan in the middle, and it's just like the nuclear family. Like there's no audience, right? They're not at the wedding, they're not at the rehearsal dinner. But he gets up and he starts talking, and then she says, I can quote with vulgarity intact, right? Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead. You're good.
He says, "I was just trying to welcome our guest, Roberta." And she says, You have welcomed us, Larry. Thank you so much. Now, will you please drink your fucking milk and shut the fuck up? And then it's just a hard cut to the next scene, and we don't even get to see Larry react to that. And that's, I think, the genius for that cut, because Larry's reaction doesn't matter. And that's what I love about that character. Like, Roberta's just like, you can tell Roberta has just been handling this wedding and just like taking control. And I have no doubt that she genuinely loved Helen, Warren's wife. But like, since she passed, like she's a woman who adapts and is like, we got to get this wedding off the ground, and I got to put up with my ex-husband, and my son's clueless, and the father of the bride is a widower who's no use to us, and she's someone who I think is the unsung hero of the film, because she's getting it done. Roberta's getting it done.
I kind of want to double dip, just if we're mentioning comedic, whatchamacallit, just a comedic quote very quick. I love the scene, and it made me crack up the first time, and it makes me crack up every single time that I watch this film. And it's just it's the subtlety, I guess, of the scene, and it's when he's talking about going to visit his childhood home. And he's so excited that he's in town. And, he goes to the address, and he sees that it's a tire shop, and he goes inside, and he's just looking around. The guy's like, hey, can I help you? He's like, oh, I used to live right here, this and then that. But that line that he delivers when he goes, you're not going to believe this. We had a tire swing over there. That kills me every time that I see this movie. It's so funny. I
love that. And is it weird that like one of my favorite lines of dialogue is when he orders a Blizzard at Dairy Queen? Like, because she's like, what do you want? And he's like, oh, I'll have some Reese's Pieces and cookie dough. He's just so, it's like, we didn't have to see it, but I'm glad it's in there.
Well, that's one of my favorite moments of the movie too, is when he's like, I'm going to deliver a letter to his wife, and she goes, okay, but don't dilly-dally. So he goes to Dairy Queen.
Yeah. And that's why it's such a perfect beat, because she says, don't dilly-dally. And
he looks at her like off with you, woman. So great, dude.
Next up is casting what ifs. I only found 2 for this movie, and they'll probably be pretty quick. First was Shirley Jones was considered for the role of Roberta. Could have been an interesting choice, but I think Kathy Bates is just kind of like,
I don't want it. I don't want it.
Kathy Bates deserves a wheel slice in the Schmoedown. I'm going to say it now.
Absolutely. I'm 1,000%. I feel like it is coming too.
She's so awesome.
Harloff watches the show all the time, so
of course
we'll see. And PJ, so we'll see what's going on.
And then finally, I have Thomas Hayden Church was originally considered for the role of Randall. 2002, a little early Thomas Hayden Church, makes sense.
That's funny because Sideways is one of my favorite films as well, and Sideways and About Schmidt are pretty neck and neck for my favorite Alexander Payne movies. And I love Thomas Hayden Church in Sideways.
He's fantastic.
But
I'm glad he got to use him later. I absolutely, I agree.
But the thing I love about Randall is how you have to do if you haven't seen the movie yet and you're watching it, you have to do 1, 2, maybe 3 takes before you realize that's Dermot Mulroney.
Yes,
absolutely, absolutely. He kills that role, man. He does so well.
Oh, he's so good. The way he just like walks like this.
That guy crushes it in this movie. Let's move on to the Mahershala Ali Award for Best Sharpshooter. The character does the most in the least amount of time. And Adam, I'm going to start with you on this one. Who do you think qualifies for this?
The most in the least amount of time.
Yeah, who leaves the biggest impact for you in the shortest amount of
time? Well, short amount of time, I guess I would give to June Squibb, because Kathy Bates, I think, steals the show as supporting performer. But I'd say with the least amount of real estate, June Squibb is so impactful because you get such an idea of who this woman is, how sweet and committed she is to her family, how unconditionally she loves her husband, even though she has all these tics that annoy him. And I think there were enough scenes of them together in the first 20 minutes that by the time you get that moment when she's gone, I feel it. I felt it when it first happened because I felt the history of their relationship from when they're driving to the retirement dinner, the montage when he's doing the first Ndugu letter where he's complaining about her. But even the thing I love about his complaints about her is even by saying all these things that are superficially nasty, he's really confessing how much he loves this woman in a lot of ways. It's not that it's flattering or that he deserves a medal for saying these mean, nasty things about her, but he's honestly betraying how much he really loves this person in a lot of ways because he notices these things about her because he's been around her all his life. I really think she's amazing in that movie. And then she goes on to be nominated for an Oscar for Nebraska, which feels justified.
Yes. And we actually just talked about her a couple weeks ago.
For Palm Springs.
Palm Springs, yeah.
She's got Palm Springs. We mentioned her. Absolutely.
Jader, who do you got for this?
I actually had Kathy Bates.
Me too.
I felt like she wasn't like completely in the full film, so I felt like she did qualify. And again, she just crushes it. Adam pretty much nailed everything about why she was just so great in this film. She was very cutthroat, which is one of the things that I absolutely love. Like every one of those scenes have been so great. And it's just I agree with Adam. I think Kathy Bates is such a gem. And everything that she does, she just crushes. And I remember when again my love for her has grown throughout. I remember when I saw this movie for the first time, I wasn't not that I wasn't into film, but I just didn't see as many films as I've seen now. And I was like, hey, it's, Molly from Titanic. That's who that is. But seeing her now and seeing her, she's just so fantastic, dude. So she's my pick for the Mahershala Ali Award. She did so much in just a very, very little time. So that's mine.
I that's my pick as well. And you got to think about it. She shows up 2/3 into this movie. She shows up pretty late, but then it feels like she's been there the entire time. By the time this film is over, she leaves such a massive impact that to me, I feel like she was just such a quick choice when I was going down these categories. I feel like she's just every scene she's in, I'm drawn to her. She's the one I want to hear what she has to say, and then her interactions with Jack Nicholson are just terrific. So I think that's who I went with as well. We move on next to the Bill Murray Award for Best Cameo. This is a little tougher to find people to choose this, people who actually leave an impact. So Jader, I'm going to throw it to you first. Who was your pick for this?
My pick for this one was Larry. It was Howard.
Larry.
Hesserman. Is that his last name?
Howard Hesseman. Yeah.
Hesseman. There you go. Hesseman. He was awesome. He was in and out. He was getting beat by Kathy Bates, man. It's the same thing. It's one of those where every scene that he was in, and then at the end with the speech that that Warren just kind of gives him, is like, "Hey, man, you've been great. Thank you so much." And he kind of gets like that, looks at like that. I told you so. I'm doing all right. Like that little when you give your kid a pat on the back for doing great. I felt like that was what Warren did to him in that speech at the end. He was just a great character. So that's fine.
Adam, who do you got for this one?
Well, Howard Hesseman was high on my list as well. The thing is, I have an affinity for Howard Hesseman because he was in a film that I'm very fond of called Reuben and Ed, which is not something that is tremendously popular with the public at large, but it's a comedy in which Howard Hesseman and Crispin Glover are stuck in the desert together, burying a cat. And Howard Hesseman plays a character in that who is trying to get more people involved in a pyramid scheme, just like Randall is in About Schmidt. And Crispin Glover is one of his most recent targets for that. Which I found funny. But the other one I had on backup, because I thought Howard Hesseman might come up, and Jader proved me correct, is Len Cariou, or Len Cariou. I'm not sure of the pronunciation. Who played Ray Nichols, Schmidt's buddy, who gives the speech at the retirement party, who had the relationship with his wife, all that stuff. But his speech at the retirement party, where he says, he does that line of repetition where it doesn't mean a goddamn thing, and you see tension rising up in the room with certain people, everyone except Warren Schmidt. Every time he says "doesn't mean a goddamn thing," Warren smiles wider and wider, and you just see the history of that friendship on display. So I think he's really good too.
I couldn't really think of anybody per se that really stood out to me in a short amount of time for a cameo. So I went with someone who exists but we never see them, and that's Nduku's caretaker. Her last letter is just like, it steals the show. It makes you you get such a grasp of humanity from what she says, and we never see her face, but we get to see her impact, and just that one letter is terrific. So I felt like she had such a great moment without even showing up on screen. So that was my pick for this award, because I kind of want to think outside the box a little bit. Next up, we have the Gary Oldman Everyone Award for Best Overacting. This is where I go with James M. Conner, who plays the best man at the wedding. He's your drunk best man, and he's just trying to throw out these stories and be funny, and it's like, all right, man, you're overdoing it just a little bit. He's funny though. I had a good time with him. We like to say in the show, Jader, 80% compliment, 20% insult. Right?
Yep, absolutely. That was my
pick. That's your pick too?
Yeah, that was my pick. That's not the wedding. James M. Conner. Absolutely. Same thing. Same reasons. I felt like, the telling the stories and all that. I mean, again, it's not a bad scene. It wasn't bad acted or anything like that, but it was just like, tone it down, bro.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because it also reminds me, I've been to a few Midwestern weddings with the drunk best man who looks just like him. And when he says, he's like, and you were both really there for me when I was dealing with that thing last year. So, and we just move on, and that's all we need. The thing that blows my mind about Alexander Payne's attention to detail is the way he uses extras. The extras in this movie feel like they're just real people in Nebraska, and Colorado and stuff like that. And there's this moment where they're at the rehearsal dinner, and this time around, because I've seen the film so many times, I was paying attention to the background where there's this whole little league team having an after party, and you see everyone running around in uniform in the background, and the fact that Alexander Payne just took a minute to be like, no, they're gonna have a rehearsal dinner, but it's gonna be at a place that's of a certain budget. And how can we get that across? And he's got this little league team just there casually after a game, and then they're there with their rehearsal dinner. And there's nothing wrong with that, but I'm just saying that's just one of those moments of soft spoken truth that this movie does. That I really I feel like I've lived that moment in a way. There's so many moments about Schmidt that I feel like I've experienced to some extent in my life. By extension,
these feel like human stories. A lot of Alexander Payne movies do. They just this is something that we could all experience, and a lot of people have at some certain points. So that's what I really appreciate about him. Next, we move on to the Steve Carell See You Next Tuesday Award. This is Jader's favorite category.
Oh, this one, this is the reason why I told you to pause, because I realized I did not send this category to Adam, even though, again, he's seen this movie a million times. So that's why I was like, oh my God, I forgot to tell him that. So this is a new addition. That's why it wasn't on the picture that I sent you. When James White, let's just give you a little background. When James White was asked to be on this show, his pick was The Way, Way Back. And it was the very first time that I had seen that film. And one of the first times that I had ever seen Steve Carell in that light. He just sucked. So we never give awards in the show to, I mean, after that we started to, but beforehand, like, it was the biggest prick in this movie. So because of that film, because Allison Janney says, she called me to see you next Tuesday. I was like, that is the perfect category for this show from now on. Mm-hmm. So we do have the See You Next Tuesday award, and you're more than welcome to go ahead off the top of your head. If you need some time, we'll go ahead and take it.
Oh my God, Jader, you're just gonna put him on the spot like that.
Right there, man. This is how it is. This is one of his favorite films, dude.
I think there's two very obvious choices for this.
By the way, did I do the overacting award as well? Okay. No, I did. Yeah. Because I just realized that couple at the RV park is pretty high up there too.
Yes. Oh yeah.
Because they're great, but they're like almost out of a Christopher Guest movie, and I'm like, and they're perfect because like Warren's playing off of them so well, and the comment where the husband, like, Warren's like, is something burning? And then he's like, oh no, I just lit some matches. he just came out of the bathroom.
Yeah.
And then, oh my God, that scene where the wife is just like, you poor man, man. Like, where it's going and you don't want it to.
Oh my God, you don't want it to go there, dude. The whole time I'm like, this is so cringy, dude. This is so cringy. This sucks.
But he knows. He's like, I'm sorry. And she's like, I don't care about sorry. Just go. He's like, can I have my jacket?
Can I have my jacket? Yeah, dude. It's just so bad, dude.
And then like all that bubbliness is just gone. Like she's just like, get the hell out of here. And the way he bolts out of there in that RV, I love how awkwardly he drives that RV throughout that whole movie. That cracks me up.
Yes, that's so funny.
So See You Next Tuesday award. You're putting me on the spot, so I'm gonna give it to Duncan, Randall's brother, who just sits there like like that line at the end where Warren's giving the speech at the wedding, and he's like, Duncan, you and I haven't had a chance to talk, but I've gotten the impression that you're a very thoughtful young man. It's just like he's like mouth breathing and staring. But like when he's at the dinner table, he's saying like, all I know is I'm out of $800. It's like, yeah, you fell for Randall's pyramid scheme, but you are the kind of person who deserves to fall for a pyramid scheme, Duncan. Yeah, you can tell like the Herzl family is a troubled family, and Duncan is the lowest piece of hanging fruit in that family. That's saying a lot.
Absolutely, 100%.
Jader, did we? I feel like you and I probably would have went with the same people on this award, right?
Maybe, man. I don't know. We do this a lot, so.
All right, it's the best friend, right? It's
his best absolutely for me.
Yeah.
It's the whole time, dude. The whole time, you're gonna Sally. I'm gonna Sally feel the shit out of this, but yeah, dude. It has to be the character of Ray Nichols. That Len Cary. I don't know how to say his last name.
Yeah, Len Cary.
Cary. Yeah. For me, it was just the whole time that again, the whole best friend gave him the speech and all that, and then after the wife's death, even the confrontation, like I'm really gonna miss her and all that stuff, and then you find out like right after you had an affair with her this whole time.
Yes,
you See You Next Tuesday.
That is very fair. That is very fair. I guess I think it's softened a little bit in my mind because of that scene where he leaves the message on the payphone, then it gets deleted.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
It's a great little moment. Yeah, I also went with him too because like I trusted you, and you're gonna cheat on me with my wife. Like it's you out of everybody. So like you don't forgive him for that quickly. So yeah, he was definitely my pick for this too. Interesting details. I asked Jader to look around for a little bit too because I really couldn't find too many details about the production of this film. Alexander Payne only had Jack Nicholson in mind for this film and would do whatever it took to convince him to take this role. Obviously, it worked out for the best because I really can't imagine too many other people playing Schmidt I feel like she's just kind of perfect for it. What else we got here?
Yeah. I was just going to say, well, Jack Nicholson, the reason I think why he deserves the Oscar nomination for this is because this is one of, and Jack Nicholson, he's a great actor, but more often than not, when we watch a Jack Nicholson film, we're very aware of the fact that he's Jack Nicholson. And About Schmidt is one of the few films where I forget who he is.
He's Warren Schmidt. He's not Jack Nicholson. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Even when I watch like 89 Batman, I kind of see the joke when he's playing the Joker. I still see Jack Nicholson. I really, especially with all the Jokers we've gotten since then. I'm like, oh, that's Jack Nicholson the entire time. But in this movie, this feels like a really lived-in character the entire time. So I really can't imagine too many other people doing this. The only other interesting detail I had in here was the word Ndugu actually means brother in Swahili and is also used as slang for friend in the United States. So we're all Ndugus here.
There you go, man. Holy shit. Found something.
Okay. What do we got here? Apex Mountain. Is this the point so this is the point in someone's career where they're at the peak. It never got better for them after this, but they're at the top. They could do whatever. When you look back at their career, this is the best of the best for them. Does anybody or anything qualify for this with About Schmidt? Kind of an open discussion here.
It's hard to say. Obviously, like the main cast, no, because they've all gone on to do a lot of great movies since then. Alexander Payne's gone on to do good stuff. I think the score by Ralph Kent is exceptional, but I also think his score for Sideways is one of his best. I'm going to kind of do a cheat.
Okay.
And say that I think this was the apex for waterbeds.
That's acceptable. That's acceptable, dude. That is totally acceptable. That is great. That is fantastic.
Because this was the swan song for waterbeds, and Randall Herzl's a metaphor for that entire trend. And his denial of how disastrous that bed is for Warren's back. And he's like, that's impossible. That's a blah, blah, blah 3000. It's top of the line. And Warren's like, I think I need something more firm. And I just remember in the 90s, I used to go to these relatives I had in Indiana. And my cousin had a waterbed, and I used to sleep on it. And as a kid, the novelty of a waterbed is great. Nowadays, you couldn't pay me to sleep on one.
Hell no. Hell no. Same thing happened with me. My best friend growing up, he had a waterbed, dude, and it's it was awesome. Now, hell no.
No. It's just that whole trend is so bizarre when you think about it, and how I worked in the furniture and mattress business for a few years, so I know how waterbeds are just not. They're bad news. And honestly, the movie's making fun of them, so calling it the height of waterbeds might be kind of disingenuous, but I also think it's kind of the farewell to the waterbed trend is About Schmidt. So
I like to pull these out of the box answers too for Apex Mountain, because none of the actors I think qualify for this. I wish I would have thought of waterbeds, because that's a great call. What about RVs?
You know what? If Nomadland hadn't come out, I would say
yeah.
And Dr. Sleep.
It's not the movie RV with Robin Williams.
Yeah, RV. Good God.
There you go.
But no, I thought of RVs as well. How about we compromise and say for Winnebagos?
Winnebagos, I think that qualifies for this. What about people named Schmidt? Is this the best it ever got for Schmitz?
No, because I know New Girl is super popular, so I don't hate New Girl. I'm just not as I never stuck with it. I watched the first 2 seasons, but I do know that the character of Schmidt is beloved by the fans of that show. So.
Yeah.
Well, I think we can probably compromise here. It has to be Ndugu's, right? There's never been a better Ndugu moment than in this film.
Yeah, I think that's a safe bet.
Jader, did you have anything for this?
I do. I actually had Hope Davis. This is I don't know. You guys can, see if you think of anything off the top of your head that she was better. I mean, she had a very small role, and obviously in Civil War playing Arya Stark. This was obviously better. There's nothing that really stands out for me. Every time that I seen her, I'm like, oh, she's fine. I feel like this has been the best that we've ever gotten of Hope Davis. So that would be mine. I don't know if you guys can even think of anything else.
I'm not going to go to bat for a ton of her movies after About Schmidt. Like, I like her in Synecdoche, New York, although she's kind of a thankless character in that, but she's really good.
Yeah.
I would agree that she's really good in this because she's so she doesn't overplay anything, and her blow-ups towards Randall are very genuine, and the way she tolerates her father's behavior is so relatable. I've experienced that. As much as I love my parents, I've experienced that with my own parents. I've seen my parents experience it with their parents. Like, it's a cycle.
So that's exactly what it is. I feel like every scene that she's in, like, again, when she sees her dad after some time, crying in the airport, and then when he tells, and then when she calls him out on his shit, like, why are you so cheap? Why did you pick this cactus? Like, she was very firm, right? And then you get the blow up scene with her and Randall, and then you get the wedding scene that you mentioned. Like, I just think she's so fantastic in this film, but I've never seen her kind of like beat this for some reason. Like, again, I'm not saying that she's bad in other films. I just feel like this has been her best.
See, the only reason I didn't put her is because I saw her television work. She's been nominated for an Emmy. She's been nominated for 2 Golden Globes. I just kind of feel like that's a little bit more significant.
Okay. No, that's fair. That's fair.
But it's kind of tough because this film has so many great performances. It feels like an insult not to say it was anyone's apex, but obviously it's not Jack's. It's not Kathy Bates. It's not really anybody. So Hope Davis, I feel like, does come the closest, but I haven't really seen, like, as far as film go, probably television. If we factor that into it, probably not.
Sorry to laugh. I just read Marisol's comment about waterbeds, and I thought it was hilarious.
What did she say?
Put it up. It says, when I was 10, my parents' waterbed was flipping awesome. I slept on a waterbed 2 years ago, though, and it fucked my back up.
All right. Now, hopefully she got her hands on some expired hysterectomy meds. So that, like, was it Percocet or whatever it is he takes, like that hard cut where, like, the priest is like, all right, and then the father of the bride will say a few words, and then it cuts to Schmidt and he's drooling on himself, and
like, completely out, dude.
All right, guys, we move on to the final category here. Who won the movie? Adam, you're our guest. I want to hear from you first. Who won this film?
Well, it's hard not to say Jack Nicholson, but at the same time, he rarely fails. I'd say hopefully it doesn't come across as a cop-out, but Alexander Payne, because
that was my pick too. Don't worry about it.
Because Alexander Payne, for me, this was like one of the first times I went home after the movie, hooked onto my dial-up internet, and found out who directed this movie. Because like I didn't pay attention to the credits because, like, I was younger and I wasn't really paying attention to that. And then, like, afterwards, I was like, who made this? Like, I kind of want to see other stuff he's doing. Mm-hmm. And then I remember when Sideways came out, I saw it because of About Schmidt, and I loved it. And I saw Sideways in theaters twice as a high schooler. And it's a movie about, like, people going through midlife crises. And I found it so relatable. And that's what I think the gift of Alexander Payne is. And before this, he did Citizen Ruth and Election, which are both really, really great. And I saw them later on in high school and then many times since then. But the thing about those two movies is they're very dark satires, and About Schmidt is a very relatable human film that also is satirical in a way, but it's not alienating. It's very relatable. And I think he continued that with Sideways, Nebraska, and The Descendants to an extent. But for me, Sideways and About Schmidt are the height of his directing career. And I think he's done a lot of great stuff since then, but I think they're his two best.
Jader, who'd you have for this?
Same thing. No, I had Alexander Payne. I had seen Election in theater, to be honest with you. Didn't know he directed it, to be completely honest. Just like that. Like, the movie was great. I got up and I left. It wasn't I have not seen Citizen Ruth, to be honest with you. But I feel like he just, again, told just a wonderful story. Just like Collins mentioned earlier, he got a Jack Nicholson that wasn't playing Jack Nicholson. Yes. We got teases that he was going to turn into Jack, just explode and blow up and all that. But he just told a wonderful story. Again, for someone that I think this movie came out when I was a sophomore in high school. For a sophomore to high school to go and see this movie and be like, wow, that was really great. He just told this great, compelling story. He's got the best out of their actors. Like, again, now I'm talking Nicholson, Bates, Larry, like everyone that was involved in this film was just, they brought their A game, and himself included. I think he definitely wins this film. It's actually, I want to say, and it's as much as Adams is saying that he loves Sideways, so do I. I think that movie's great, but I think About Schmidt is his best film as well. So he definitely wins this for me.
They're a virtual tie for me.
Yeah.
So, and just honorable mention for taking Dermot Mulroney, who's this heartthrob actor, and turning him into Randall Herzl, because it's just subtle stroke of genius that people forget happened in the early 2000s. And Dermot Mulroney enjoyed doing that role, and he actually
absolutely
got to try out some things, and he was this amalgamation of all these relatives I've met throughout my entire life. I felt like I met Randall and his whole family.
Yeah,
I'm tempted to say Ndugu, because I just feel like anyone who watches this film, there's not a single person who's going to dislike Ndugu, unless they've got biases out there. But that's another story. But it is Alexander Payne. Yeah, you can make an argument for Jack Nicholson, but he's directed by Alexander Payne, who gets this raw and gritty performance out of him. Jack is one of the greatest actors ever, and I think this is one of his most understated but well done performances he's ever done. At the end of his life, wow, I just killed Jack Nicholson.
Wow, dude, I'm like, what are you doing, man?
I just killed him. At the end of his career, though, this is towards the end of it right here. This is probably his most significant one, I think, towards the end. So I'm going to go with Alexander Payne on this. Be able to grab that performance out of him as well. It's just something that's great. So that's my pick. That is going to do it, everybody, for this episode of the Jader and Kyle Show. Thank you all for joining us so much. Adam, thank you so much for coming on the show. I'm so sorry it was such a long time coming for these past couple weeks, just little misscheduling mishaps, but we're so glad we finally got around to it with you.
Oh, not a problem at all. Happy to roll with the punches. And love doing this stuff more and more often in this community. So don't be strangers.
Absolutely
not, man. Absolutely not. You'll be a guest. You'll come back again.
Yes.
I mean, we like talking up shop, man, as long as we're talking movies, right?
Oh, yeah. I have no shortage of things to say on that topic.
Adam, do you have anything you want to plug, man? You got a big match coming up, right?
Yeah. So I won the title last year against this guy named Dan Merle, and it was really exciting. I've
heard of him.
Yeah.
There it is.
But in order to retain it, they're making me play him again, so I'm going to do that. No, honestly, I'm really excited to play Dan again. I no matter what the result is, this pushes me to my limits, so I'm really excited for that match. So tune in on April 9th. Become a patron today with the Schmoedown, $10 or higher. But because it's been announced, I can say that I am officially participating in the free-for-all as well, so check that out towards the end of April.
So
but in
jealous,
the
dude. I'm so jealous.
Well, Ben Bateman announced it for me. Thanks, Ben.
Yeah. No,
but
man. I can't. Some of us that can't make it. Actually, a
Save
buddy
it.
of ours is getting married. So it is what it is. I won't be able to.
congrats.
Yeah, a buddy is getting married, and we won't. It shoots the day of the wedding. So there's some of us. Yeah, you heard. I know you. I know you know somebody in the faction that can't make it. So
that's tough.
Yeah, dude.
So I'm excited to play in that, but beyond that, I participate in shows like this when I'm invited. Follow me on Twitter and Letterboxd at Eisenthor, AIZANTHOR, and that's the long and short of it.
Well said. Jader, any final things you want to say before we get out of here?
No, just thank you all for watching, whoever tuned in. Thank you, the comments, Kim, Matt, and Marisol that were watching. And check this film out if you haven't. It's I know we kind of like spoiled it for you guys, but it's still quite the venture. I feel like this film does not get talked about enough. I'm so happy that Adam did mention it. Mm-hmm. So check that out, and then just tune into the Movie Trivia Schmoedown. I have nothing lined up as of yet. My match aired. If you haven't seen that, aired last week. Me against Janine the Machine. Hell of a match. If you guys haven't checked that out, please go ahead and like that, and then obviously like, subscribe, and do what you got to do here. And if you guys want to join the show, one time we're a little booked up right now, but we will make time for you as long as you guys bring some great films. I am ready to talk them. So go ahead and do that as well.
Yeah, and guys, tune in next week, Wednesday at 10 p.m. We are going to be joined by the movie guys, Paul Preston and Adam Witt. So going to be a fun show. We don't know what movie we're doing yet. Be on the lookout for that poll. Otherwise, thank you all again so much for joining us, and we'll see you next week on an all-new episode of the Jader and Kyle Show.